Chairwoman, can you, I don't think she does.
Can any of you hear me? Okay, Commissioner Routine. Okay, Commissioner Routine, but if you would unmute yourself, can I hear you? Can you talk to me if you unmute yourself to talk to me?
Okay, I'm going to have every commissioner listen to me. Jan, do you hear me?
Okay.
Jan, do you hear me? Yes or no?
Okay.
Commissioner Cleve, do you hear me? Commissioner Cleves? Santana?
Yes.
Jan? Do you hear Jan? Jan, do you hear me? Okay, that's the problem. I will mute everyone. We're going to take care of this right now.
Maggie. Oh, God.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, well, I couldn't hear you. Now all of a sudden I can hear everybody. Let's start the meeting. I'm just going to go.
Okay, we're going to start the meeting. Okay, give me 2 seconds. Leave your mic on, Jan. I'm going to call Ryan.
Yep.
Now, Melinda, you ready?
Yeah.
We're going live, Melinda. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The City of Paterson Planning Board special meeting of Monday, February 8th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. via webinar session. Chairwoman Northrop, please proceed with the meeting.
Everyone, please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Okay. Sorry for the delay. My computer was hacked, so I'll apologize up front. Sorry. Okay, Commissioners, Planning Board staff, ladies and gentlemen, as Chairwoman of the City of Paterson's Planning Board, I call this meeting of 2/8/21 to order. I hereby state that all the provisions of the State of New Jersey Public Meeting Law have been fully and completely met, that the notice provisions required have been properly posted in the Planning Board office and with the City of Paterson clerk, that the public notice and advertisements have been published in the Herald News on 1/29/21 in accordance with the law, and that the copies of such notice and public advertisements are on file in the Planning Board office, as is also the agenda listing the applications to be taken up by the Planning Board at this meeting. The procedure tonight will be in accordance with the rules, regulations, and bylaws as heretofore determined by the Planning Board at its office in the municipal complex in the City of Paterson. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Melissa. Good evening, Commissioners. Roll calls as follows. Commissioners, Commissioner Ahmed. Absent. Commissioner Brooks.
Here.
Commissioner Savalos.
Here.
Commissioner Cleaves.
Isaac.
Thank you. Commissioner Cook. Absent. Commissioner Fisher. Absent. Commissioner Issa. Absent. Commissioner Santana.
Present.
Commissioner Udine.
I'm here.
One moment. And Chairman Northrop.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alright, so,
I think you missed me, Councilman Salik is here.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, with all the commotion, I truly apologize.
That's fine, I'm here, Madam Secretary.
Oh, I understand, but I should be more aware. That's all my apologies. It's just a crazy evening.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
welcome, Councilman Kalik. You may proceed.
Thank you, Councilman Khalid. Okay, just give me one moment. And I'm gonna read this here. This notice is pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Act addressing effective coronavirus measures on the next public meeting. So consistent with the coronavirus-related restrictions of Executive Order Number 107, given on Saturday, March 21st, 2020 by Governor Philip D. Murphy, the Planning Board of the City of Paterson will not conduct in-person participation of the public at all future meetings until further notice. However, public participation will be available by means of communication equipment pursuant to the NJSA 10:4-8, commencing on April 15th, 2020. Though there may potentially be a practical need for a limited number of administrative, technical, or other city personnel to be present in or near the council chambers, 3rd floor, City Hall, 155 Market Street, Paterson, New Jersey, in-person participation of the public is prohibited. Nevertheless, for reasons of compliance with the said Executive Order Number 107, public participation will be available by calling 973-321-1579, and the meeting ID number is 711-680-001, and I will repeat that later on throughout the course of the evening. For the Planning Board special meeting on Monday, February 8th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. on the date and time that the meeting is scheduled to commence. The public may also participate in the meeting by accessing the website of the City of Paterson, www.patersonnj.gov, and following the email link for the meeting, www.patersonnj.gov/planningboard. I believe we have two special meetings tonight. The first one is for JCM Investors 1012 LLC. Mr. Narconda, are you representing the applicant?
Yes, good evening. I'm on behalf of the applicant, JCM Investors.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, JCM Investors 1012 LLC, 223-225 Rosa Parks Boulevard, Block 3506, Lot 42. The site is vacant and the applicant proposes to construct a 3-story mixed-use building on the 3,750 square foot parcel. One 1,330 square foot commercial space, and 7 residential units are proposed. The first floor proposes a commercial space and 1 2-bedroom unit. The second and third floors each propose 1 1-bedroom unit and 2 2-bedroom units. There will be a total of 2 1-bedroom units and 5 2-bedroom units. Variances are requested for rear yard setback, as a minimum of 20 feet is required and 16 feet is proposed. Open space / amenity areas as 1,050 square feet is required and 500 square feet is proposed. The parking, 1 parking space is provided for the commercial use and 2 are required. A variance is also required for the floor residential space, as ground floor residential spaces are not permitted. This proposal is within the C1 neighborhood commercial district of the 4th Ward redevelopment plan, and it requires site plan approval and bulk variances. Mr. Deutsch, may we have your review, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Property taxes and sewer charges are paid to date. Persons having a 10% or greater ownership interest in JCM Investors 1012 LLC is Matthew Florio, providing an address of 449 East 18th Street, Paterson, New Jersey. James Pike, a licensed surveyor, P2 Land Surveying, has prepared a survey dated October 27, 2020. The survey indicates that the parcel is frontage of 37.5 feet on Rosa Parks Boulevard. A rear lot line that also measures 37.5 feet, and northern and southern side lot lines that measure 100 feet each. Parcel is area 3,750 square feet, or 0.8% of an acre. The survey also indicates that the parcel is devoid of structures. The wall of the existing dwelling to the south is 1.44 feet over the property line. The topographic information indicates that the site is relatively flat and has fencing surrounding it. Evans Architect has provided a 3-page plan submittal dated November 11, 2020. Sheet number S1 is the site plan and details page. The plan indicates the zoning ordinance data, the tax map, the proposed site plan, a recharge pit detail, the existing conditions plan, the lighting detail, the fence detail, and notes. The proposed site plan indicates that the building is to be constructed on the front property line, on the northern side property line, 4 feet from the southern side property line, and 16 feet from the rear property line. The intent of the C1 Neighborhood Commercial District is to provide for retail and personal service businesses to supply the everyday needs of the neighborhood residents. The intent of the district standards are to allow for convenience, retail, and service businesses to operate without disrupting the general small-scale residential character of the greater neighborhood area. Lots with a width of 50 feet or greater prior to subdivision and/or development shall provide off-street parking. No off-street parking is required on existing lots that are less than 50 feet in width. As the building is frontage on Rosa Parks Boulevard where there is a width of 37.5 feet, the applicant is not required to provide off-street parking as per the redevelopment plan. Mixed-use buildings are encouraged, however residential uses are not permitted on the ground floor of buildings. The applicant seeks a waiver for the proposed first floor 2-bedroom apartment. Sheet number S2 is the site details plan. The plan indicates the refuse enclosure detail, the sanitary sewer connection, the water connection, the concrete vertical curb and roadway pavement widening, the concrete sidewalk detail, and the proposed site plan. Sheet number A2 indicates the floor plans and the building elevations. The first floor plan indicates 4 building access points. 2 access points are at the front of the building on Rosa Parks Boulevard. One into the commercial space and the other to stairs leading to the upper floors. And 2 are on the southern side of the building, one leading to a sprinkler and mechanical utility room, and the other to the first floor 2-bedroom, 1,088 square foot unit with a full bathroom, a kitchen, a laundry area, and a living room. The proposed 1,330 square foot commercial unit includes a restroom and a mechanical unit. The applicant shall advise as to the location of a mail and package delivery area. The applicant should advise if there is a specific use proposed for the commercial space. There are a wide range of permitted first floor uses as described on page 40 of the 4th Ward redevelopment plan. Child care centers and establishments selling alcohol are conditional uses requiring board approval. Other non-permitted uses that may be proposed will require a use variance. The second and third floors are identical in layout. Each floor proposes 3 living units. A 1-bedroom unit containing 661 square feet, a 2-bedroom unit containing 900 square feet, and a 2-bedroom unit containing 921 square feet. Each of the 6 second and third floor units contain a living room, a kitchen, a full bathroom, a utility room, and a washer and dryer. The front elevation indicates Rosa Parks Boulevard. The storefront has 4 glass windows and a frame finish surrounded by a brick veneer. The entrance door to the upper floors is shown on the left. A wall-mounted sign with 3 gooseneck lamps above is shown on the first floor. The second and third floors have 3 sets of windows on each floor. A brick finish is also placed on both upper floors. The roof indicates a decorative cornice top. The building has a height of 31 feet. The left side elevation indicates a stucco veneer, the entrance to the mechanical room, and an entrance to the rear 2-bedroom unit and windows on all 3 floors. The brick veneer continues on the rear elevation and indicates 2 sets of windows each on the first, second, and third floors. The applicant is proposing a minimum of 8 feet of sidewalk and a tree placement area between the building and the curb line of Rosa Parks Boulevard. The minimum lot area requirement of 2,000 square feet in the C1 zone recognizes that there are many existing buildings on smaller sized lots and as a result encourages older structures to be either rehabbed or built new without a larger lot area requirement in place. The applicant requests variances for the following proposed conditions. A minimum rear yard setback of 20 feet is required and 16 feet is proposed. Open space, amenity space of 1,050 square feet is required based on 150 square feet per unit, and the applicant is proposing 500 square feet of open space at the rear of the building and variance is required. A variance is also required for the first floor residential spaces. Ground floor residential spaces are not permitted. Shall be responsible of the applicant and or the preparer of the plan to obtain a letter from the city engineer indicating that the plans have been satisfactorily reviewed prior to the plans being released to construction official. Surrounding land use. This proposal is in the Wrigley Park section of the city within the 4th Ward redevelopment plan. The area is a mixture of commercial and residential uses. A 6-unit residential building has been approved by the planning board on October. Residential building has been completed also on Governor Street. On October 21st, 2019, the planning board approved a proposal to construct a 3-story mixed-use building on the 3,000 square foot parcel. The applicant estimates the cost of this proposal at approximately $2 million. The applicant should incorporate the design elements contained within the 4th Ward redevelopment plan. That is your proposal for this application, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deutsch. Mr. Mariconda? Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioner. Thank you for hearing us on a special meeting basis. Let me say we essentially concur in Mr. Deutsch's report. I will point out up front, and this will be covered by the experts, Mr. Evans and Mr. Williams as well, that there is absolutely no intention to propose a liquor store, daycare center, or laundromat, anything that would require special approval as a non-permitted use in this site. The applicant's intention is a small service business to meet the needs of the surrounding area. Similar to the projects that Mr. Deutsch alluded to, having been just approved very recently within close proximity of this site on similar, if not smaller lots. So with that being said, I will call Mr. Evans as our first witness.
May I ask you how many witnesses you have this evening?
Mr. Evans, Mr. Williams, and the applicant.
Okay, so Matt Evans, Mr. Williams, and the applicant. Okay, please go ahead, Matt.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear from testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
State your full name for the record, please.
Matthew Evans, architect, 470 Chamberlain Ave, Paterson, New Jersey.
We accept Mr. Evans as an expert witness. Are you going to post your plans?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You ready to proceed, Mr. Evans?
Hold on, let me post it.
Something over there.
Hold on. Sorry, I got it. Hold on. Okay, you see him?
Yes, yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, Mr. Evans, you prepared this site plan, is that correct?
Yes.
And having heard Mr. Deutsch's report,
Yes.
could you give us an overview of the site and what the intention of the applicant is?
Okay, as Mr. Americanda mentioned, we concur with Mr. Deutsch's report. The property is vacant presently, and we're proposing a new 3-story mixed-use building at that site. There'll be no curb cuts or parking. It would just be all consistent with the neighboring buildings, which are also mixed-use, and some of the approved properties that were mixed use adjacent to this and near this property. So, as I mentioned, it's a vacant lot, and I'll zoom in here. That's the existing conditions, and what we're doing, we're showing a 0 lot line condition on the front and the left side. The rear, we have open space, refuse area, recycling, and landscaped area for the occupants. And then we have a paver walk to the front of the building, which accesses the side and the rear for the tenants. We have, going to the architectural plans, we show the commercial units 1,330 square feet, and that's the main entry door in the center of the tenant space. Then we have a door to the left for the apartments above. Based on Mr. Deutsch's report, we can add an additional package area of 30 square feet adjacent to the stairs. If this were to be approved, that would be beneficial for the tenants upstairs. In the back, we have a handicap accessible unit. It's 2 bedrooms. It's 1,088 square feet. It has its own separate mechanicals. It has its own laundry, large kitchen with a peninsula, an ADA bathroom, and closets in that space. The commercial space is 1,300 square feet approximately, with mechanical, ADA bathroom for that tenant space. Then, when we go to the second and third floor, we have 1 and 2 bedroom units. We have the rear unit is a 2 bedroom unit, similar to the one down on the first floor. It has laundry mechanicals, a bathroom, kitchen with a peninsula. It's 921 square feet, which meets the minimum 900 square feet. Then we have the middle unit is a 2 bedroom. It's 900 square feet. With the same amenities as the previous apartment. Then we have a 1 bedroom in the front, 661 square feet, and that would be the same for both the second and the third floor apartment. We also show the front brick facade, large windows. We have a large storefront and a large entry door with a transom for the apartments to enter above. And then we have a little more less detailed elevations for the rear and the side, showing the large windows for the architectural. So that's pretty much the application that we're proposing for the building.
Alright, and this exterior design will be in accordance with redevelopment requirements?
Yes, it has a large, cornice, decorative cornice, and we have, aesthetic gooseneck lamps, and signage would be all, compatible with the zone.
That's all I have, Mr. Evans, at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, for the sake of time, would you please call Mr. Reed?
Okay, Mr. Reed?
You raise your right hand? Where are you? I can't see you.
Come on here. You see me?
Okay, now I see you. You swear affirm testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you
Say
again,
your
Mr. Reed.
full name for the record?
Andy Reed, REID,
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Can you give us your position with JCM, please?
Director of Development.
Thank you. Fully familiar with this project as well?
Yes.
Okay. You heard Mr. Evans' testimony. You'll be hearing Mr. Williams' testimony. The design of this site is, as Mr. Deutsch indicates in his report, extremely similar to comparable projects in the immediate area.
Yes, it is.
In fact, 196 Rosa Park is already built.
Yeah, almost look like the spitting image of it.
Yep, and it's already built out as well.
Yes. Fully occupied, yes.
Great, and that's right down the street, essentially.
Yes.
Okay, and that's a smaller lot than this one, the exact same proposed uses.
Yes.
Okay. And that building is functioning smoothly in your estimation?
Yes.
Okay. Will this site have the normal security and lighting and supervision and security requirements that you always provide?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Reed, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna open it up to the public at this time, for questions. So if anyone has a question, it's for questions only. If anyone in the public has any comments, please save your comments for the end. Right now, I'm asking for anyone to call in if you have any questions of the architect, Mr. Evans, or the, property manager, Mr. Reed. Okay, please call in at 973-321-1579, and the meeting ID is 711-680-001. And I'll allow, 2 minutes for call-ins and 3 minutes for questions. Thank you. Madam Secretary, has anyone called in?
Commissioners and Chairwoman Northrop, you can proceed with the meeting. If for any reason I get any callers, I will let you know, but at this moment, we have no callers. And at this
Okay,
time, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so at this point, I'll open it up, to our commissioners. Any commissioners have any questions of either Mr. Reed or Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Ceballos, go ahead.
Yes. I would like Mr. Evans to repeat the statement about the additional 30 feet, that it was a need for that. I believe in the beginning of the presentation, it was a mention about additional 30 feet.
Oh, yes, yeah, we're going to, take a little space out of the commercial unit. We have 1,330 square feet for the commercial unit, so we're gonna take, as Mr. Deutsch mentioned, that we would, need a package area for people getting package deliveries in the, tenant area. So we would take 30 square feet from the commercial unit, 6 by 5, and add that to the hallway of the tenant access to the second floor.
It's a very minor reduction in the commercial space, very minimal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners? Okay, here,
This is Commissioner Cleves.
yes, Commissioner, please, go ahead, please.
Do you, can you tell me what type of commercial, business you expect to have on the first floor?
Things that we permitted, that use basic community service type businesses.
Can you be more specific?
Excuse me?
Can you be more specific? You're saying there's liquor stores?
Like, this is, I mean,
As well, but there are many uses that are permitted in that section of the redevelopment zone. But we're looking for small service-related businesses, no childcare, no laundromat, no liquor store, just things that serve the immediate area. But I'll have George talk about it a little more.
Oh, okay, because some of the commercial use, that was, suggested, may need some parking. So, that's why I was questioning what kind of commercial, businesses you're thinking about having there.
Well, yeah, to the best of my knowledge, Mr. Good's report does not indicate that any part of this application requires parking. The permitted uses in the C1 neighborhood business section does not, as long as we comply with that general small service business concept. That's why we're eliminating the liquor store, the childcare, laundromat, and anything that's documented within that zone. And we cannot deviate from the standards that zone permits.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to then ask, Mr. Maraconda, would you, please bring your next witness forward, please?
Let's call Mr. George Williams.
Please raise your right hand.
I don't see him. Oh, there, no, I don't see him.
Okay, Evans, can you remove your plan so Mr. Can proceed?
Do you swear affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I most certainly do.
Please state your full name for the record.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is George Weedle Williams with the Dishman Group headquartered in Montclair, New Jersey at 105 Grove Street, suite number 3.
And we accept, Mr. Williams as an expert witness, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'd like to, note for the record, Mr. Williams, I did receive your exhibits afterward, so if you don't mind posting them. I received them after 5 o'clock, which was a little late for me to send them to the commissioners.
Certainly.
So, thank you.
Will do. Will do.
Mr. Williams, if you're ready, while you can be posting, while you begin, we definitely, as the applicant has indicated, wants to do something very small service related that will serve the immediate neighborhoods and something that doesn't. Okay, you can proceed there, I'm sorry.
No.
Mr. Williams, if I can interrupt for a second, my apologies. Are you relying on that report that, Madam Secretary referred to before? Are you relying on, do you have a report, or, I know most of the time when you testify, you rely on something. I thought I heard our secretary state that she didn't have it, so I was gonna just ask you to mark it as an exhibit if you were gonna refer to it.
I would like to, correct this as well. Thank you, Mr. Equiviva. I should have addressed this to you directly. But yes, I received it after 5. You know, we leave here at 4:30, but I always give, Mr. Weedle the benefit of the doubt. It's just because of the hour that I couldn't email it to everyone. But Mr. Weedle, thank you, always on point. So please post them, thank you.
That's fine. Mr. Williams, do you have that though? You can, if you're testifying from that, if you can just mark that as A1 and just describe how many pages it is, and if you can just give it a short title by reference, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly, I'll share my screen in a moment. It's a storybook exhibit composed of about 9 different slides. Most of them are images taken from our field observation, and 1 or 2 images are taken from the Paterson land use documents.
Okay, we'll mark that as A1.
Thank you.
Madam Court Reporter, if you can mark that as A1.
When I receive them, I'll mark it and send it to the secretary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Melinda, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Apologies for the late transmittal.
And you can proceed, Mr. Williams.
All right, so I'm gonna mix things up a little bit today. You've heard a substantial amount of testimony from Mr. Evans and Mr. Reed about the project, so I won't go over all that. Instead, I'll go directly to some of the questions first, and then come back to the exhibit. And we only have 2 relatively minor C variances, so I'll do that last. The question was about some of the commercial uses permitted on the site, and according to the redevelopment plan, page 40, and Mr. Deutsch alluded to this in his testimony, there are a number of permitted commercial uses. They include the following: retail stores and shops, personal service businesses, and those are types of businesses that Mr. Reed gave testimony to, restaurants excluding drive-ins or drive-throughs, banks and financial institutions, dry cleaning and clothing laundries occupying no more than 3,000 square feet, child care centers, public facilities, and of course the mixed-use development that we are proposing. Madam Secretary asked about business and professional offices. These uses shall be permitted above the ground floor of a building, and then last but not travel agencies and real estate offices. So all those are the permitted uses. Just to play that through a bit more, and Mr. Deutsch also mentioned this in his direct testimony, and that is, in terms of parking, lots with a width of 50 feet or greater prior to the subdivision shall provide off-street parking, and so the converse of that, of course, is lots with less than 50 feet do not require parking. Last but not least, if you look at page 41 of the redevelopment plan, interestingly, the vignette or image they use to depict what an appropriate mixed-use development might look like looks a lot like the design that Mr. Evans has chosen for this site. So for all those reasons, you'll hear me testify, excuse me, that, and I just lost the share, give me 1 second, that approval of this application would, in fact, advance the purposes of your redevelopment plan. Now for the share, bear with me. It's loading now. Again, the purpose and intent of this particular district, the C1 district of the 4th Ward redevelopment area, is designed to provide for retail and personal service businesses which supply the everyday needs of neighborhood residents. And I think that's what Mr. Reed's testimony underscored. The intent of the district standards are to allow for convenience retail and service businesses to operate without disrupting the general small-scale residential character of the greater neighborhood. And again, the vignette that's used on page 41 captures the vision for this district of the 4th Ward redevelopment area. And again, I would argue that Mr. Evans' design approach advances that. So with the exhibit, very quickly, just to give you a sense of the surrounding land development pattern. Page number 2 is just an aerial image that shows how our property is located with the bold yellow borders along Rosa Parks Boulevard and its mid-block. What's interesting is if you look at some of the rooftops on this side of the street, you get a sense of the scale and massing of the few other buildings that are on the site, on the block rather, and of course our property is currently vacant, which is antithetical to the goals and objectives of the redevelopment plan. Next page is just to underscore the fact that we are indeed in the C1 district of the redevelopment area, also known as the neighborhood commercial district. Now for a few pictures of the site and surrounding area. Again, the intent and purpose of the redevelopment plan and redevelopment planning is to remove indices of blight, vacancy, underutilized properties, deteriorated properties, etc. Here and vacant lots. Here we have a vacant lot next to a property or two properties that are in a state of disrepair. And our goal would be to infill development here with quality mixed-use development that will support the neighborhood business corridor. Example of the property adjacent to ours, kind of in a state of disrepair. As I mentioned earlier, our design will be a better aesthetic than what exists directly next door. And of course, if you look to the building on the corner where you have the first floor windows are boarded. Those are the kind of indicators that actually contribute to the designation of an area in need of redevelopment, or rehabilitation. The next slide, slide number 6, image number 3, is a photograph that you all are familiar with, the subject of a previous application that was approved. Moving along to slide number 7, photo number 4, capturing another image of a similar build-out on Rosa Parks Boulevard, showing the attention to the design and aesthetic of the building, a more modern feel, a more inviting feel, so that you have storefront windows that invite patrons to come inside and shop. This application was approved by the planning board in October of 2019, as I think was mentioned either by Mr. Deutsch or Mr. Mariconda in his opening remarks. With that being said, the variances, as mentioned previously, are the minimum rear yard setback and open space amenity. The minimum rear yard setback, as discussed by, I believe it was Matt Evans in response to the question from one of the commissioners, is relatively minor or negligible. 20 foot is required, 16 foot is proposed, so a very minor deviation from that setback requirement. And then the open space and amenity space deviation, 1,550 is required, 500 foot is proposed. As you heard Matt Evans give the explanation for the rear yard setback and open space deviation, the planning proofs for that explanation or the predicate that was established by Matt Evans is found, in my opinion, in the C2 context, and that is the context that allows the board to consider whether the benefit gained from the strict application of your standards outweighs any detriments. And in my opinion, both deviations are justifiable under the C2 relief, primarily because that relief will allow for the removal of a blighted condition in your redevelopment area, that blighted condition being the vacancy, the improvement to the vibrancy of the Rosa Parks neighborhood commercial district, streetscape, and last but not least,
Excuse me, commissioners, I need to get Commissioner Cleese back on. She's having a little difficulty. Can you hold that door, or would you like to continue?
I know. While we're holding Mr. Aquaviva, I miscounted the pages again. It's 7-page exhibit.
7 pages?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I see Commissioner Cleves, please continue. Okay, Mr. Williams?
Yes, Madam Chair.
I see Commissioner Cleves, so please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Very quickly, where we left off, I was discussing the proofs for the C variances that we're requesting. I mentioned that the C2 context would be the appropriate context for consideration, and that the purposes of your redevelopment plan would be advanced, and then I'll get into the purposes of zoning. In terms of the purposes of your redevelopment plan, certainly revitalize the fourth ward of the city, and that's what this would do. Reduce the blighting impacts of abandoned and vacant properties, which this would do. Provide quality new housing option for area residents, which we submit this would also accomplish. Promote mixed-use development, which is spot on with what's being proposed in this application, and create a cohesive and vibrant commercial district to serve the local population. And that's achieved through this application by filling in one of the missing teeth in this smile of Rosa Parks Boulevard, but also providing a better streetscape vis-a-vis the modern retail design and layout for this proposed application. In terms of the purposes of zoning, in my professional opinion, several purposes of zoning would be advanced if you were to grant our release. Certainly subsection A to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. You've heard me say this before, I'll say it again. It is a bit of a catch-all purpose in zoning, that's why it's the first, but it is a particularly appropriate purpose of zoning to consider when discussing redevelopment areas, because the removal of vacant and abandoned properties enhances the safety, health, and welfare of any community as it would here. Subsection J, prevent urban sprawl and degradation of the environment through improper use of land. Planners are fond of saying that mixed-use compact development, particularly in urban settings, is an appropriate approach to planning that stops the degradation of land, or also known as urban sprawl. Certainly that would be advanced if you were to approve our application for this matter. Last but not least, subsection I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design. You heard the testimony of Matt Evans. In my opinion, if you were to grant our relief, you would certainly enhance the visual environment of this section of Rosa Parks Boulevard. Finally, the courts have found that the advancement of a state policy can be considered a purpose of zoning, and as a planner, I would submit to this board that approving this application for mixed-use development in an urban center would advance the state's policy for smart growth, which encourages walkable neighborhoods, compact development, and mixed use. The C2 requires a balancing act, that is that the benefits outweigh any detriments. In my opinion, if you were to grant the minor deviations from your standards, there would be no significant, or to use the term of art, substantial detriment to the public good, but there would obviously be several benefits as testified to by both Mr. Evans and Mr. Reed, and underscored by my testimony. In fact, in my opinion, this would be a better zoning alternative than a strict application of your code because of the benefits that would accrue, not just to the applicant, commissioners, but to the neighborhood as a whole, which is, quite honestly, the purpose of zoning, the best practice of planning and zoning, and would advance your redevelopment plan. So,
2 points, if I could. There was Mr. Deutsch's recitation in his report that we would require a waiver for the proposed first floor 2-bedroom unit on the ground level. Now, Mr. Evans indicated that that's a handicapped unit. Certainly, would that be the basis of a waiver in your opinion?
I'm sorry, I may have missed.
Evans's report, Mr. Deutsch's report talks about the first or ground floor unit. The ability to have that approved. It's a handicapped unit. Is that a beneficial use that justifies that granting, in your opinion?
There is certainly a benefit to providing handicap accessible units for the residents of Paterson that also would promote the redevelopment plans call for quality housing for all residents.
And that is also in the rear, so there's no issue of residential frontage on the storefront area, which I know is not looked on favorably. The location of this residential unit, in your opinion, is positive?
When there are mixed-use developments on commercial corridors, having a residential unit in the rear is a far better alternative than having it on the front, because that disrupts the commercial pattern of development.
Right. So from both perspectives, that's a positive in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And other than that, again, we don't have a parking requirement, but this is also a thoroughfare for public transportation to serve the residents. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Mr. Aquaviva, I believe, has a question of Mr. Williams.
I do, Madam Chair, thank you. Mr. Williams, how are you?
I'm well, how are you, sir?
Okay, I have just a very quick question for you. In regards to the waiver that Mr. Deutsch refers to in paragraph 9 of his review, obviously, a waiver does not have anywhere near the scrutiny that a variance requires, but if you could just set on the record why you believe a waiver is applicable in this particular application, and for specifically this first floor 2-bedroom apartment being proposed on the first floor.
We just went through that recitation in response to my question, but if you would like to repeat it, we will.
I can't hear you. You're going out on me.
Are we on that?
I can't hear you. You're going out on me.
Can anyone else hear me?
I can hear you, but you are going in and out a little bit. I believe, Al, Mr. Maricondo just stated that we did hear from Mr. Williams about that handicap apartment on the first floor. He just went through it.
Okay.
Do you need additional information?
I do not. My apologies. It's just that Mr. Maricondo's audio was going in and out on me.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't hear the specific question.
Okay. So, if you could summarize it again in a nutshell for council to the board.
I'm sorry?
You're still going, you're going in and out. I can hear it.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Aquaviva. Mr. Maricondo asked a couple of pointed questions pertaining to the quote-unquote waiver, and they were, is there a benefit to having handicap accessible dwelling units? My answer was yes. Certainly that advances the purpose of the redevelopment plan, which specifically lists as a goal to provide quality housing for all residents of the community, and those needing handicap accessible units are part of that cohort. The other question was, if a residential unit was to be located at that level, would it be a better design alternative to have it located with access to the rear or through the front? My response was certainly from the rear, so as not to break up the continuity of the commercial development on the first floor.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Your testimony was a little short tonight, so I wanted to make sure.
All right, thank you. All right, so that would conclude your testimony tonight?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, so at this time then I'm going to open it up to the public. They may call in for questions only, okay, of Mr. Williams. Okay, and the phone number is 973-321-1579, and the meeting ID is 711-680-001. I'll have 2 minutes for call-ins, 3 minutes for questions, and while we're doing that, and we're waiting, I will open it up to the commissioners. Commissioners, do you have any questions of Mr. Williams? Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Williams?
This is Commissioner Cleaves.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Cleaves.
With the handicap unit being on the first floor, do you require additional some sort of security, like security bars or something like that on the windows?
Commissioner, it's a good question. I'm going to defer to the architect on that, in terms of what code requirements may exist and aesthetic issues.
So,
Yes, go ahead.
Madam Chair, if I can address that maybe.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
The windows that we use in our properties, they have an interlocking mechanism where you can only raise the windows up but so much. But we cannot put bars on the window in case somebody had to get out on that ground floor level. That is the window for a matter of egress. We can't put bars on the windows.
Okay.
Are these windows easily to be broken?
No, they're very strong windows.
Okay.
And they have mechanisms in the interior we can lock them with it to raise them up but so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners? Mr. Williams? Yes, here, Commissioner Dean, yes. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Dean.
So is there any solid, building safety and security plan, attached to this plan that, for the safety cameras or maybe attached to Paterson Police Department, something like that?
Yes, Commissioner, Mr. Maricano, when he was questioning, that's what we have went through that. All these, all our buildings, including from here, we well lit. It has, security system that's tied into our command center on Carroll Street, as well as to the Paterson Police Department, as well as we have a road patrol that patrols all of our property. So if there's an incident on our property, we will have someone there that within a matter of maybe 2 or 3 minutes, come from different directions.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners, any questions? Mr. Williams? Okay, Madam Secretary, do we have any call-ins?
We have no callers at this time, Chairwoman Northrop and Commissioners, thank you.
Okay, so at this time then I'd like to, Mr. Maricano, would you like to, summarize, please?
Yes, thank you. I'll be brief, Madam Chair. Again, we think the testimony in this case from a professional and applicant's perspective are very evident that this is a site that is crying out for new development. We present a project here that we believe is strictly in accordance with the C1 neighborhood commercial concept, small service business to serve the residents in the area, including this building. Quality residential units with a developer with a positive proven track record. Variances are minimal, and it's very comparable and continues the trend of redevelopment along Rosa Boulevard of other successful projects. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, commissioners, would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application?
So Commissioner Dean, I'll go for it.
Yes, please, go ahead.
On the application of Jason Investor, 1012 LLC, 449 East 18th Street, Paterson, New Jersey, 07524. Property address 223-225 Rosa Boulevard, lot 3506, lot 42. I move that the board attorney prepare a resolution granting the site plan approval by variances, city engineer, subject to city engineer approval and HEP Soil Conservation District approval.
Yes, and I think also there was a stipulation about adding 30 feet, to the hallway, am I correct, Mr. Maricano?
30 square feet.
30 square feet for the mailroom, yes.
Yes, 30 square feet for the mailroom, and so that's a stipulation, okay, we'll add that in, Commissioner Dean?
Yes, is it a condition, Madam Chair?
Yes, we're gonna put it in as a condition.
So the condition of 30 square feet,
Yeah.
space.
Taken from the first floor for the mail area. Okay. Do I have a second? Anyone? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Ceballos. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioner Fisher is absent. Commissioner Ahmed is absent. Commissioner Brooks, what is your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Savalos.
Yes.
Commissioner Cleaves.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Santana.
Yes.
Commissioner Udine.
Yes, Madam Secretary.
Councilman Kadik.
Yes.
And Chairwoman Northrop, your vote?
Yes.
That's 7
Thank you.
affirmative, and it has been granted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations. May I have a motion to close this portion of the meeting out?
What time is this meeting closing?
It's 7:59 according to my clock.
This meeting has been closed. Chairwoman Northrop, can we have a 5-minute recess and use the ladies'
We'll take a 5-minute recess, come back here, and we're gonna start the second meeting. Thank you. One last thing, I see plans up here. Mr. Williams, can you take your plans down?
Try to do that right now.
Okay, great, thank you.
I am back, Chairwoman Northrop. Are you available, Amalinda? I will advise you when we'll begin. Chairman Northrop, I am here, ready to begin the meeting.
Okay.
Chairman Northrop will begin the meeting of Monday, February 8, 2021 at 7 p.m. via webinar session for JCM Investors 1012 LLC, 8-10 Godwin Avenue. You may proceed.
And everyone rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
States of America,
and to the republic
for which it
that
stands,
stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Thank you.
Please be seated. Okay, Commissioners, planning board staff, ladies and gentlemen, as chairwoman of the City of Paterson's Planning Board, I call this meeting of 2/8/21 to order. I hereby state that all the provisions of the State of New Jersey public meeting law have been fully and completely met, that the notice of provisions required have been properly conversed and are on file in the planning board office, as is also the agenda listing the applications to be taken up by the planning board at this meeting. The procedures tonight will be in accordance with the rules, regulations, and bylaws.
Commissioners, excuse me, can you mute your mics? Commissioner Ahmed. Absent. Commissioner Brooks? Yes. Commissioner Brooks, thank you. Commissioner Savalos?
Present.
Commissioner Cleaves?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Santana? Commissioner Santana?
Present.
Commissioner Issa absent. Commissioner Udine?
I'm here, Madam Secretary.
Thank you. Commissioner Cook? Absent. Councilman Kalik?
Present.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Fisher absent, and Chairwoman Northrop.
Present.
We have 7 commissioners present for this meeting this evening. Thank you.
Okay, consistent with the coronavirus-related restrictions of the Executive Order number 107 on Saturday, March 21st, given on Saturday, March 21st, 2020 by Dr. Philip D. Murphy, the Planning Board of the City of Paterson will not conduct in-person participation of the public at all future meetings until further notice. However, public participation will be available by means of communication equipment pursuant to NJSA 10:8, commencing on April 15, 2020. I think there's somebody's microphone on. Okay. Though there may potentially be a practical need for a limited number of administrative, technical, or other city personnel to be present in or near the City Council Chambers, 3rd floor, City Hall, 155 Market Street, Paterson, New Jersey. In-person participation of the public is prohibited. Nevertheless, for reasons of compliance with the said Executive Order number 107, public participation will be available by calling 973-321-1579, and the meeting ID number is 711-680-001, and I will repeat that later on and throughout the meeting. For the planning board special meeting on Monday, February 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. on the date and time that the meeting is scheduled to commence. The public may also participate in the meeting by accessing the website of the City of Paterson, www.patersonnj.gov, and following the email link for the meeting, www.patersonnj.gov/planning-board. So, Mr. Maricon, are you representing the applicant on this evening?
Yes, correct, application and the applicant.
Okay, so JCM Investors 1012 LLC, 8-10, Godwin Avenue, Block 3606, Lot 3, and on the vacant lot, the applicant proposes to construct a new 4-story residential building with a total of 15 units. The basement proposes a sprinkler/utility room, a refuge recycling room, a bike storage area, a half bathroom, a gym community area, an elevator and a staircase. The first floor proposes a lobby with an elevator, a nail, a package room, and a stairwell. 8 off-street parking spaces are also proposed in addition to a secondary stairwell. The second through 4th floors each propose 1 studio unit and 4 one-bedroom units on each floor. Parcel has an area of 5,000 square feet. This proposal is within the RA-2 zone of the 4th Ward redevelopment plan. Variances are requested for the following. Front yard setback with a minimum of 3 feet is required and 0 feet is proposed. One side yard setback with a minimum of 5 feet is required and 0 feet is proposed. A rear yard setback is a minimum of 20 feet is required and 8 feet is proposed. Number of building stories as 3.5 story building is permitted and 4-story building is proposed. The maximum building coverage is 60% building coverage is permitted and 83% building coverage is proposed. Maximum of lot impervious coverage is 80% impervious coverage is permitted and 92% impervious coverage is proposed. Space amenity area of 2,250 square feet is 1,925 square feet is proposed. 15 Oak Street parking space is district parking space is proposed. Requires site plan approval and bulk variances. Mr. Dwight, would you like to give us your review, please?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman. Property taxes and sewer charges are current. Persons having a 10% or greater ownership interest in JCM Investors, 1012 LLC is Matthew Florio, providing an address of 449 East 18th Street, Paterson, New Jersey. James Pica, licensed surveyor of T2 Land Surveying, has prepared a survey dated October 31st, 2020, and indicates that block 3606, lot 3, has frontage of 50 feet on Godwin Avenue, a rear lot line that also measures 50 feet, and western and eastern side lot lines that measure 100 feet each. The parcel is devoid of structures and indicates a rise in elevation from 83 at the front of the parcel to 89 towards the rear lot line. A 2-story brick and frame dwelling exists on the lot line to the west. The lot is area of 5,000 square feet or 0.12 acres. Godwin Avenue is a one-way street in a westerly direction. This proposal is located on the southern side of Godwin Avenue, approximately 74 feet east of the intersection of Straight Street and Godwin Avenue. Evans Architects has prepared a 4-page architectural submittal dated November 4th, 2020. Drawing S1 is the proposed site plan. The 200-foot tax map, the zoning ordinance data, the barrier-free parking detail, the sanitary sewer connection, the water connection, the concrete vertical curb and roadway pavement widening detail, and the concrete sidewalk detail are indicated. The proposed site plan indicates that the new building is to cover 83% of the lot and has an approximate dimension of 92 feet in length and 45 feet in width. The building is proposed to be on the front property line, 8 feet from the rear property line, 5 feet from the western side property line, and to be placed on the eastern side property line. To the west, a 2-story brick and frame building will remain on the common property line, and to the east, the Temple Solomon Church exists, which has frontage on Hamilton Avenue as well as Godwin Avenue. A note of the plan indicates that the entire site and site perimeter is to be equipped with video security throughout public areas and site lighting along the traveled public way and parking area. Surveillance systems are to connect to the City of Paterson Police Department system. Drawing S2 is the soil erosion plan. A permit from the HEP Soil Conservation District is required prior to construction. The plan also indicates details for the tree planting and lighting diameter plan. Details are shown for the pavement striping, depressed driveway, and handicap parking stall. A 12-foot curb cut is proposed on Godwin Avenue to provide vehicular access into the garage. 2 street trees are also proposed to be placed in front of the building. Drawing SK1 indicates the partial basement, first floor, and second through fourth floor plans. The basement plan indicates a sprinkler room, a restroom, a 351 square foot gym and community area, a 95 square foot bike storage area, a refuse and recycling room, and an elevator and staircase. The first floor indicates that there is a doorway access point into the building through recessed access doors located on Godwin Avenue. The recessed doors lead to a lobby and lounge area, the building elevator, the mail room, and stairwell number 1. There's also an interior door that leads to the parking garage. The overhead garage door located on Godwin Avenue leads to the 8-space parking garage, which includes 1 handicap parking space. There is a rear exterior access door located at the southwest corner of the building's rear corner. This door leads to the second enclosed stairwell. The floor plan for the second, third, and fourth floors are identical in layout. Each floor has 1 studio unit and 4 one-bedroom units. All units include a full bathroom, a washer and dryer, a kitchen, and a living room area. The studio units contain 448 square feet, and the one-bedroom units contain 604, 632, 649, and 706 square feet. There's also a 276 square foot tenant amenity room on each floor. Drawing SK2 are the building elevations. The front elevation view from Godwin Avenue indicates the garage entry door and the pedestrian access door into the lobby area. The building indicates a brick veneer and vertical panel facade, single and double hung windows on each floor, and a rooftop molding. The rear elevation view of the building indicates a first floor block finish and horizontal siding on the upper floors. There are 2 sets of double hung windows on each of the upper floors. The left side elevation indicates the first floor rear stair egress door. Double hung windows are on each of the upper floors. The right side elevation indicates no windows, a first floor masonry finish, and horizontal siding on the upper floors. The building indicates a top height of 40 feet. The intent of the RA-2 residential district, the 4th Ward redevelopment plan, is to permit a more intensive residential use of land with various types of dwellings. The surrounding existing dwellings consist of older and newer multifamily dwellings of 2 and 3 stories in height. Within the RA-2 district of the 4th Ward redevelopment plan, there are other examples of both new and recently approved multiple unit residential buildings that have replaced older structures that have either been vacant and abandoned or on long vacant lots. Variances are requested for the following. Front yard setback is a minimum of 3 feet is required and 0 feet is proposed. One side yard setback is a minimum of 5 feet is required and 0 feet is provided on the eastern side of the building and 5 feet is proposed on the western side of the building. A rear yard setback is a minimum of 20 feet is required and 8 feet is proposed. Number of building stories is a 3.5-story building is permitted and a 4-story building is proposed. Maximum building coverage at 60% building coverage is permitted and 83% building coverage is proposed. Maximum impervious surface coverage as a maximum of 80% is permitted and 86% is proposed. Open space and amenity areas is 2,250 square feet is required and 2,000 square feet is proposed, and parking as 15 off-street parking spaces are required and 8 off-street parking spaces are proposed. 1 parking space for each of the 5 studio and 10 one-bedroom dwelling units is required, as 8 off-street parking spaces are proposed. A variance for 7 off-street parking spaces is requested. As this is a redevelopment area, the planning board must determine whether the granting of the requested variances to allow the number of dwelling units proposed by the applicant is appropriate for the lot and the immediate surrounding area. Residential apartment construction is permitted within the redevelopment area. A mixture of different types of residential units is encouraged. The planning board should determine whether the land area of the parcel is suitable for the number and type of apartment units proposed and whether additional off-street parking needs to be obtained. It shall be the responsibility of the applicant and/or the preparer of the plan to obtain a letter from the city engineer indicating the plans have been satisfactorily reviewed prior to the plans being released to the construction official. surrounding land uses. This proposal is in the Wrigley Park section of the city within the 4th Ward redevelopment area. A new multi-story apartment building has been constructed on the southwest corner of Godwin Avenue and Carroll Street, and an existing 4-story apartment building is located on the northwest corner of Godwin Avenue and Carroll Street. Concluding remarks. The applicant estimates the cost of this proposal at approximately $2 million. The applicant should incorporate the design elements contained within the 4th Ward redevelopment plan on the site and within the building. At a meeting held on January 27, 2020, the applicant was approved by the planning board to construct a 5-story residential building with 20 units at 112-114 Godwin Avenue. At a meeting held on September 28, 2020, the applicant was approved by the planning board to construct a 5-story residential building with 15 units at 83-87 Godwin Avenue. That is your staff review for this proposal, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Also, please let the record reflect that I see Co-Chair Fisher has joined us for this meeting. I saw him come into the meeting to join the 5th paragraph, the number 5, when Mr. Deutsch was reading his review.
President, yes, I do. Thank you.
Chairwoman Northrop, Casey, record duly noted that, Vice Chairman Fisher has joined the meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Mr. Maraconda?
Yes, again, good evening.
You're
Can you hear us?
Yes, you're kind of breaking up a little bit, so I don't know why, but try, go ahead.
Okay.
If Don Melinda can't hear you, she'll let you know. Thank you.
Okay, very good. We'll do our best. Again, thank you for hearing us on special meeting basis tonight. This is a project as per Mr. Deutsch's report, which we agree with in all respects, which is very similar, I would say almost an identical project to a previously approved site, which he refers to in his report. Also on Godwin Avenue at 8387, same number of units, same number of stories, where we actually one less story than we have tonight. And also the same situation in terms of the parking ratio. Mr. Williams will cover that in his planning testimony in terms of similarity of development in the redevelopment zone. But again, we have a building with state-of-the-art amenities, which will be testified to. We believe it's, again, a really strong continuation of the 4th Ward pattern of development that we've been presenting to this board over the last several years. And we look forward to hearing the testimony of Mr. Evans and Mr. Williams, as well as the applicant, Mr. Reed, in between the two professionals. We'll be calling Mr. Evans our first witness.
Okay, Mr. Maraconda, you're breaking up. We're gonna hear from Mr. Evans, we're gonna hear from Mr. Reed, we're gonna hear from someone else?
Mr. Williams.
Okay, Mr. Williams, okay. Okay, so go ahead, Mr. Evans, go ahead.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
State your full name for the record.
Matthew Evans, architect, 470 Chamberlain Retina Heights, New Jersey.
Okay, and we accept Mr. Evans as an expert
Thank you, Mr.
witness.
Evans. You have the opportunity.
Post your plans.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Is Mr. Evans gonna be posting?
Yeah, I'm posting it right now. Okay, can you see him?
Yes, we can see them.
Okay.
Mr. Evans, want to present here?
Yeah, so we have the plans, that we submitted to the, board, and also the ones we posted, 11/4/20, no revision date. We have the, site plan, existing condition site plan and site details on sheet S1, along with the zoning and, the drainage details, the tax map, and zoning ordinance data. on the first sheet. As mentioned, this is similar to an application at 83 Godwin that was approved. Basically the same exact building. The site is a little bit, the grading is a little different, but it's essentially the same site configuration. It's a 50 by 100 lot, and we have a going to sheet A, SK1. We show the lower level, which is parking, 8 parking spaces, which includes handicap parking. We have the apartment lobby vestibule, approximately 70 square feet, a mail room, elevator, and a fire stair. Adjacent to that, we have parking, garage entry, and then in the back, there's a fire stair that exits out to the rear of the building and along the side for a fire exit. And we also have access into the garage from that stair. The second floor consists of 5 apartments. We have 1 bedroom and studio, and 4 1-bedrooms and 1 studio unit. We have a meeting amenity space on each floor. It's 276 square feet. All the units are handicap accessible, elevator accessible, and they all meet the minimum requirement for a studio and also for a 1-bedroom, which is 600 square feet. They all vary between 605 and 706 square feet on the 1-bedroom. So the studio is 448 square feet. The units all have their own laundry facilities, an open kitchen, dining area, handicap bath, as I mentioned. And then when we go to the basement floor plan, we have the gym community area, which is 351 square feet. And we have bike storage, refuse recycling, and a sprinkler room. And that would be the extent of the plans. Going to sheet SK2, we show the front building elevation, which shows the garage entry and the apartment entry. As you can see, there's a grade difference because Godwin slopes down towards Straight Street. So we have compensated for that in the garage is a little lower than the entry into the apartments. We have a mix of brick, 2-color decorative brick finish. We have 5-ton and aluminum coping moldings, and we would have double hung black frame windows, more of a modern contemporary style. And looking at the left side elevation, we have the windows showing all the apartment windows, and then as you can see, the grade varies and it goes up in the back. We would be compensating for that in the rear exit. Showing the rear the rear elevation. We have a mix of siding and masonry finishes. And then same with the right side elevation. We have the siding, masonry finish with an aluminum coping on that. So, as I mentioned, it's similar to the one we presented and was approved for 83 Godwin, with the exception of some slight grading differences.
And all these units would be they studio or 1-bedroom, comply with the minimum size requirements, square footage?
Yes.
Okay. And we do have self-contained laundry facilities as well.
Yes.
That will conclude your site plan testimony, architectural?
Yes.
That will conclude this testimony, Madam Chair.
Okay, then I'm gonna ask you to call Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Please raise your right hand.
Ms. Rachel,
Okay, well, I can't see you.
see you now?
You swear or affirm testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
State your full name for the record.
Andy Reed, REID.
And again, for the record, would you give us your position with JCM?
Director of Development.
So I'm fully familiar with this, proposal?
That proposal in that site, in that area.
Yes. Appreciate that. Now, with regard to the testimony, the design of this building is in accordance with your understanding?
Yes,
Okay. We are proposing 8 parking spaces on site, is that correct?
yes.
And in your estimation, based upon your experience with the other buildings that are developed close by and approved by this board, how are your developments functioning vis-a-vis parking with this layout and configuration of parking?
So far, they're going very well.
Okay. You're meeting your parking needs of your actual tenants and your practical
Yes.
tenants? Okay.
Yes.
Good, okay. And with respect to this complex, just cite for the record, how your security lighting system works again?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Could you cite for the record how you handle security and lighting and those sort of things?
Yes, like I said, our buildings are well-lit buildings in the interior, exterior, the common areas, garage areas, stairwells. We have cameras on our buildings in the common areas inside, the parking area on the exteriors. The cameras are monitored by our 24 hours a day, 7 days a week security team, as well as the Paterson Police Department. Any exterior penetrations have secure gating on here that's only accessible open from the inside going out, not from the outside going in. Like I said, we maintain our properties. We have a maintenance crew that goes out and cleaning from our properties every single day. That there's a crew out there cleaning in front of our property, so we maintain them as far as their cleanliness as well as our security.
Okay, Madam Chair, I will conclude Mr. Reed's testimony at this time.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to, just give me a moment, I'm going to open it up to the public. I'm just gotta get in there to get the phone numbers and the meeting ID. Can somebody help me, Melinda, do you have the phone number for me? The Orleans and, yeah.
321-1579. The ID is
Yeah, and the ID.
711-680-001.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, I'm going to open up to the public. So if anyone has any questions for the architect, Mr. Evans, or the property manager, Mr. Reed, please call in at 973-321-1579. Meeting ID number is 711-680-001. I will give 2 minutes for call-ins and 3 minutes for your question, and it's for questions only. Thank you.
Hello?
Okay, while we're waiting for call-ins, I'm gonna open it up to the commissioners. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Sorry, one moment. Okay, so there are 2 call-ins, but there's a problem right now with them trying to get through. So in the intro, I'm gonna open it up to our commissioners. Commissioners, do you have any questions of either Mr. Evans or Mr. Reed?
Chairwoman, this is Commissioner Dean.
Yes. Please go ahead.
So yeah, this is not a question. This actually, I'm not sure whether I missed it or not. I wanted to take a look at the parking arrangement, like the first floor plan, if I could.
Hello, Commissioner, can you hear me?
No, you're echoing badly right now. All right, so go ahead, Commissioner Redine.
I think Mr. Evans already got it, my questions. Yeah, I wanted to take a look at the first floor plan, and he's already presenting. So, yeah, so, Mr. Evans, is there any, 1 handicap parking and 7 regular parking, I believe, 1, 2. So, my question, I'm not sure who to address this question or not. So who's gonna get the priority of the parking spaces? Like who's gonna, since we have.
That would be Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, can you answer that? Mr. Reed?
What's this question again?
He's asking, since there's only 8 parking spaces underneath, the building, who gets priority? Who gets those spaces out of your tenants?
Well, I mean, obviously, as we rent them, if they record, like everybody rent you don't want a parking space, don't have a vehicle. But as we rent it, they want a parking space, we're gonna assign them a parking space until we don't have it anymore. And then we try to, if we need a company, we come in and mess them out of the property.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Chairwoman,
Excuse me, wait, I have the commissioners on right now. Can you just hold for a moment, please?
I understand, but I'm having difficulty listening, so I can't write any notes. I just need 2 minutes to get, fix this problem.
Alright, okay, so I'm gonna ask Mr. Reed and Mr. Redine to just hold the conversation for now. Hold on, please, 2 minutes.
Do you hear me, Chairwoman?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Give me 1 second, please. Still having difficulty. I'm done. Ryan, do you hear me? Does it? Yes, Steve.
I hear you. What's going on?
Ryan.
Can you turn off my TV?
Yes, I'm here, but I can't seem to talk.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'd like to, I'm sorry about this, Joan, but I did not hear, much of it. I know, Melinda, did you get that? You did? Okay, then that's okay. I can always get that from her.
Okay, so I'm gonna continue, alright, so I'm gonna continue with the conversation between Mr. Reed, okay, and, Commissioner Udine.
That's fine,
Okay, so go
that's
ahead.
fine. And I do have 2 callers, Bigwood and Northrop.
Yes, we'll do that as soon as we're done with the commissioners. Okay, Commissioner, Udine, please go ahead with your question for Mr. Reed again, please.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, Mr. Reed. So, Mr. Reed, the question is do you mean that who's gonna, first come, first serve kind of thing, or is there any?
The first come that required that needs a parking space, get a parking space as they come. Like, example, I have 2 5-unit buildings with only 3 tenants on each one of those buildings have a vehicle that requires a parking space. So it's actually like that. Like, just because I have like 8-unit building, don't mean that all 8 people want a parking space to have a vehicle. So we assign to a person who has a vehicle, then we, a registered vehicle in their name, and we assign them a parking space.
So, Mr. Reed, the question is, for example,
Can I just wait? Yeah, wait, just give me one moment, I do need to clarify this. I think what Mr. Udine is trying to say is, in other words, it's not gonna be every night whoever enters the parking lot parks there, first come, first served. You're actually gonna assign it, right, so somebody's renting from you and they have
Assigned parking space, it will be assigned that parking space.
right, okay, do you understand, Commissioner?
You are not charging anything extra for the parking spaces?
No, they just, if they have a vehicle, and the rest of the vehicle registered state of New Jersey in their name, we will assign them parking space.
That's great, alright. So thank you, Mr. Reed, thank you,
No problem, no problem.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner Udine, anything? Any other questions?
And no, Chairwoman,
Okay.
you clarified the part that, is not able to explain.
Okay,
Thank you.
alright. Commissioners, okay, any questions of Mr. Reed or Mr. Evans before I go on to the public?
Fisher.
Yes, Commissioner Fisher?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My question is, I see that you have the one handicap parking there. If that is assigned and someone else moves in the building who is handicapped, would you be able to make another handicap spot for them? Just for Mr. Reed.
Well, our architect would better be able to answer that question because within the building area, handicap space had certain requirements. Obviously, if we had two people that need a handicap space, I guess they'll have to apply for one on the city street because a handicap space has certain requirements. So in order to create another one, we will lose 2 parking spaces.
Okay,
Yes. I can add to that. We have
Okay, go ahead.
the 2 spaces you see here, you see the handicap space here. These 2 here have accessible area adjacent to the parking space, so people can get in and out easily. So up to 3 spaces could be accessible.
Alright.
I'm sorry, Mr. Evans, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
The 2 spaces adjacent to the drive aisle there, we have ample space adjacent to the park, those 2 bars for accessible access. When you park in between the other spaces, you have no access area next to it. That's why it's striped area for the 1 space is there. So, as I mentioned, we have area for additional handicap parking if needed.
All right, well, thank you very much, both of you.
Okay, so, any other commissioners, any questions of Mr. Reed or Mr. Evans?
Oh, yeah, one more question, I'm sorry. Mr. Fisher, sorry.
Commissioner Fisher, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Reed, you mentioned that, as long as the person has, their vehicle registered in the state of New Jersey, so they could, if they were from New York, could they still have a parking space, or just New Jersey?
I'm Commissioner name, but if they live in New York, and obviously if they move to New Jersey, by law, they have to change all the registration and driver's license to stay in Jersey, so then it will be applicable.
Well, actually, that's not really the law, because, if you're explain what your job is. Your job, has, say you're an actor, you can live anywhere with a different plate. You don't have to live at that residence.
Okay, but then it'll be in the name, so if that's the case, it will be no issue. I mean, it'll be a legitimate situation, and we will accommodate that.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, I hear no other commissioners with questions. Okay, so you have 2 call-ins. I hope these call-ins are asking questions, not comments.
I understand that, but I'd like to place one person on first. I will call her.
Okay.
She is waiting. Her name is Julia Gonzalez from 810 Godwin Avenue, 8-10 Godwin Avenue, actually. Julia Gonzalez, do you hear me?
Yes, I do.
I'd like you to only ask questions of the testimony that is given. Any questions you like, but you cannot make comments about parking or anything about your neighborhood till the end of the meeting. Then you can have your time to speak about why you feel this application should proceed or not proceed. It's on you. But for now, please ask any questions. Any testimony given.
Wait, excuse me, before you begin, okay, please state your name, spell it, and give your address, okay, so the reporter can record it.
Okay,
Julia, Julia, Gonzalez, Gonzalez.
Address?
Hamilton
Address?
Julia Gonzalez, do you have any camera on your connection right now?
No, I do not.
Then there is no way that I can have this proceed. Mr. Aquaviva and Amelinda Lopez, the court reporter, must see you.
Oh, I didn't put I did the call-in ID with the ID number.
Mr. Aquaviva and Amelinda, I don't know if we're allowed testimony without seeing the viewer. I'm not sure.
You can comment, that's the whole.
She can comment, but I just want, she can comment, but Ms. Gonzalez, okay, please state your address for the record.
I live in 147 Hamilton Avenue.
147 Hamilton Ave. Okay, what is your question? The question has to be either for Mr. Evans, the architect, or Mr. Reed, the property manager. Your question, please?
I really didn't have any questions. I was waiting to the end of the meeting so I can comment on something.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, then just hang on, and we'll get to you at the end. Okay, can you ask your next caller to get on, Madam Secretary? Madam Secretary? Okay.
The next caller is Elijah Mejia, 110 Godwin Avenue in Paterson, New Jersey. Mr. Elijah Mejia, are you there, sir? Okay, I'm gonna ask again, IT staff, Mr. Ryan, Director Ryan Foote, can you call me? Because I understand that Elijah Mejia is on the line. Can you unmute yourself? And since you do not know how, just hit *6 on your cell phone, Mr. Mejia. There you are, sir. Only ask questions and testimony.
Yes.
Okay, so
Eliezer Mejia, E-L-I-E-Z-E-R, Mejia, M-E-J-I-A. My home address is 145 Hamilton Avenue.
Okay, Mr. Mejia, would you? Yes, your question is for her.
Melinda, do you have to swear him in, ma'am?
No. Mr. Mejia, okay.
Yes, my question is, I want to know if the building is in compliance with the parking lot, and I want to know if the architects know about the storm that he's building, because that street, Gowling Street, when you go to Gowling Street, you will see a lot of cars parked in Gowling Street that you don't have any way to travel. So I want to know if the architects have noticed how populated is the area.
Okay, Mr. Mejia, I believe that, I'll let, Mr. Evans, answer that if he wishes, but I believe that is a question for the planner. Okay, but Mr. Evans, can you answer that question?
Okay, yeah, well, I'll refer to the planner.
You're gonna defer to the planner?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so Mr. Mejia, that question will go to the planner. He hasn't come on yet, he hasn't testified yet. So if you two can just hang on the line until we get through his testimony, okay, you can ask him then, okay?
Okay.
Okay, please hang on. All right, Madam Secretary, if there's no other callers, I'm gonna ask, Mr. Maracano to call, to bring in, Mr. Williams.
We'll call Mr. George Williams.
Mr. Mahi, I may so, please, unmute your mic.
Mute it.
Mute it, please.
Okay.
It may be funny, but we're trying to just proceed with an ample time, thank you.
Wait, I know, okay, just like we're all waiting up here, that's fine, okay, it's been a long night. Okay, Mr. Maracano, do you want to call Mr. Williams?
We do, Mr. George Williams, fire.
Uh-oh. Okay, go ahead. Melinda?
Sorry. You swear affirm that testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I most certainly do.
Please state your full name for the record.
Yes, good evening, Madam Court Reporter. My name is George Williams, spelled Williams, representing the Nishwain Group, a planning consultancy located at 105 Grove Street, Suite number 3 in Montclair, New Jersey.
And we accept Mr. Williams as an expert
Thank you, Madam Chair.
witness, please proceed.
Thank you very much. Mr. Williams, you're going to be posting an exhibit, I believe?
Yes.
Okay, and I guess that'll be marked A1. Do you want to identify it for the record as you proceed?
Yes, certainly, if I may. This is an exhibit consisting of several images that were captured during our field observation and several images that are taken directly from the Paterson land use documents. It's about 8 pages in length.
Will you be starting your testimony with a description of that exhibit or utilizing that exhibit?
Certainly.
Okay.
Again, mixing things up a little bit, I'm going to begin with the exhibit this time. It is a perfect piggyback on testimony you heard from both Counsel, Mr. Maracano, Mr. Deutsch's testimony, as well as Matt Evans and Mr. Reed, just underscoring that what's being proposed this evening comports with what the redevelopment plan requests, but also with some of the development that's been approved by this board in the immediate vicinity. I'll begin with slide number 2, and this is just to give context for where we are in the broader scheme of this section of Godwin. The bold yellow border indicates our property, again, vacant property near the corner of Straight Street. And if you look at the rooftops, you get a sense of the varied land development pattern. Even without looking at the facades, you can tell that there are a variety of building typologies, sizing, and map. Particularly at the corner of Auburn Street and Godwin, as well as the corner of Straight Street. Say that 3 times fast, and Godwin. The next slide is just a capture of the zoning map. Again, just verifying that we are indeed in the residential district of this 4th Ward redevelopment area. I would just add that we are very close to the live work overlay district as well. The next slide, page number 4, photo number 1, captures the size and shape of the subject site. You can see it's got a slight slope, as Mr. Evans testified in his testimony, and you can see previously approved development at the very rear of the site on another street. And also you can see the adjacent properties having more of a manufacturing type design, but most importantly, you can see that this lot is vacant and strewn with a bit of trash, and certainly not contributing to the overall vibrancy and character of this neighborhood, which is contrary to what the redevelopment plan seeks to do. Parenthetically, and I'll go back to the redevelopment plan in a few moments, as this board knows, the intent and purpose of development planning and Paterson's 4th Ward redevelopment plan is to redress the conditions of blight in a neighborhood, in this case, the neighborhood surrounding the section of Godwin Avenue, typical conditions of blight include the kind of site you're looking at now, vacant land, abandoned properties, deteriorated properties, underutilized properties, and again, those indices are the antithesis to good planning and take away from the character of a good neighborhood. Our intent for this application is just the opposite. It is to advance the goals of a redevelopment plan by eliminating conditions of blight, like this vacant lot. The next slide, page number 5, photo number 2, captures a close-up view of one of the elevations of the immediate properties immediately to the east of the subject site, and this is the Solomon Temple Apostolic Faith House of Worship. Pardon me. Then on slide number 6, photo number 3, view of 11-13 Godwin, located across the street, just giving you a view of the varied typologies in this neighborhood. Slide number 7, photo number 4, 114-124 Street is a 5-story, 50-unit residential building located west of the project site. I'll just add that this is not atypical in Paterson to see buildings of various design, massing, and scale kind of cheek to jowl. It is in part due to the industrial history of Paterson, and we think that the proposed application will fit in very well on the site in the area. Slide number 8, photo number 5 is a capture of 42-50 Auburn Street. Here, slightly larger multifamily dwelling at the intersection of Auburn and Hamilton. These buildings all feature very minimal setbacks and virtually no on-street parking accommodations. So with that, walk around the block of you, and again, I know you all know the area as well as, if not better than I do, but I hope it'll share or provide some context for the remainder of my testimony, which is going to focus on the redevelopment plan and the reliefs that are being sought. As Mr. Deutsch mentioned in his testimony, the site is located in the RA2 residential district of the city's 4th Ward redevelopment area. The intent, as you all know, of this RA2 district is, quote, to permit a more intense residential use of land with various types of dwellings. Density is maintained in a medium range while building height is kept low enough to be generally compatible with 1- and 2-family residential developments, and that's found on page 35 of your redevelopment plan. I thought it was important again to refer back to the exhibit, give you a sense of the land development pattern in this area, which is extremely varied. And again, I think our proposed application will fit perfectly within this land development pattern. Matt Evans went through the design and mentioned several of the amenities, including but not limited to storage for bikes in the basement, which is all part of encouraging smart growth development by decreasing the dependency on cars and encouraging residents to walk, bike, and use mass transportation. Fully sprinkler, there's a refuse recycling area, a gym and community area, and an elevator. Proposed on-site parking, I'll get into that a bit later, is 8 on-site spaces for the development. I would concur with the recitation of reliefs provided by Mr. Deutsch and Mr. Maricondo. Just for the record, they include minimum front yard setback, 3 foot required, 0 foot provided, similar to what you see on the image on your screen now. Minimum rear yard setback, 20 foot is required, 8 is proposed. Again, not atypical to the multifamily development in the immediate vicinity. Maximum building lot coverage, 60% permitted, and 80% is proposed for a deviation of 20%. Maximum building height, 3.5 stories required. We're proposing 4 stories, but our height, as Matt Evans testified, will be akin to what you see in some of the images I'll share with you in my exhibit. Minimum parking spaces, 15 are required, 8 spaces are proposed. You heard testimony from Mr. Reed about JCM's experience in developing multifamily dwellings in the fourth ward redevelopment area and their experience with real automobile demand as opposed to the strict application of your code, and I will go to that a bit further. Finally, open space and amenity space, 2,250 square feet is required, 1,920 feet, 25 feet, is proposed. Matt Evans touched on that a bit, making reference to the interior amenity space which is being provided, some of which I alluded to in my introductory comments, and I think Mr. Reed talked about the safety factor, which encourages the use of the interior amenity space as opposed to some of the exterior open space. Going back to the redevelopment plan, as I get into the C2 relief, my testimony will be that the C2 context is appropriate. That's the flexible C variance, which allows this board to consider benefits versus detriments, or if this board believes that on the whole, the proposed development is a better zoning alternative than the strict application of your code. In my opinion, it is, and I begin with how the approval of this application would in fact advance the goals and objectives of your redevelopment plan. The goals and objectives of the fourth ward redevelopment plan include in part, revitalize the fourth ward of the city. Certainly that is our intent by the removal of a vacant property and the provision of a quality multifamily dwelling. Reduce the blighting impacts of abandonment and vacant properties. I'm repeating myself, but that's straight from your redevelopment plan. If you were to approve our application with its release, certainly we would advance that goal. Provide quality new housing options for area residents. Again, this board is now fairly familiar with JCM, their commitment to quality housing, and you've heard the testimony of Mr. Evans in terms of how he designed the building and the units to provide quality housing for Paterson residents and others. So for all those reasons, in my professional opinion, if you were to grant this relief, it would certainly advance the goals and objectives of the Paterson Fourth Ward redevelopment plan. That being said, the next step would be to talk about the purposes of zoning. As this board knows, the C2 variances to be granted must be rooted in the purposes of zoning as articulated in municipal land use law. And so I'll begin with subsection A. This is the first purpose of zoning. It's a bit broad, but as you've heard me say in the past, it's particularly suitable for development in redevelopment areas, and I'll explain why in a moment. Subsection A is to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Again, it's a catch-all, but in my practice, I submit that when you remove any condition of blight in a redevelopment area, you would be advancing subsection A by enhancing the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of a given community. And again, that comports with your redevelopment plan goals and objectives. Subsection I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design. One of the reasons I walked through some of the surrounding land development patterns and our site in particular is it's a nod to the design efforts of our design leader, Matt Evans, his use of different materials, his design articulations and use of fenestration, all to improve not just the applicant's property, but to improve the overall character of the surrounding neighborhood. And some of the cues that Mr. Evans took were from the other properties that I displayed in my exhibit. Finally, and you've heard me say this before as well, the board will be familiar that the purposes of zoning may also be found in the advancement of a state policy, and that was established by the court case Confuso v. Sealing. And in my professional opinion as a planner, if you were to grant this application, you would also advance the state policy for smart growth. And smart growth is to enhance walkable communities. Part of making a neighborhood or community more walkable is to remove vacant and abandoned properties that make the pedestrian less likely to enjoy a walk in an area that has those conditions of light. It also encourages compact, dense development, which comports with your Fourth Ward redevelopment plan and is the intent and purpose of the application before you this evening. Finally, the C2 variance context allows the board to consider the benefits versus the detriments. In my professional opinion, the benefits, as stated thus far, far outweigh any potential detriment. There were several C variances for deviations from the bulk and area standards, but according to the Pullen case, the board can look at all of those C variances in total if you find that in total the deviations from the strict application of your code offer an opportunity for a better development in a specific area, then you may grant the C variance. Finally, there are no substantial detriments to the public good nor inherent to your zone plan. And that's where I'm going to pause for a moment and speak directly to the parking variance. The C2 context is also appropriate for parking. It is a common context for parking variances where the variance is for a deviation from the requirements for the number of parking spaces, but the board may also look at the de minimis exception from the residential site improvement standards. Either way, in my professional opinion, there are sufficient proofs to support the requested relief. Under the de minimis exception standard from the residential site improvement standard, or RSIS, RSIS allows the board to consider several characteristics of the site and surrounding area. If the site is in an urban context as opposed to a purely suburban, exurban, or rural context, then the board may consider a lighter requirement for parking than it would in its area. And that's because typically urban areas are served better by mass transportation and it is easier to navigate without single vehicle usership. Also, the demographics of a community. If there is a showing that the reliance on vehicle ownership is less than what is required by the code, then the board may consider the de minimis exception. And what you've heard from Mr. Reed is based on his empirical experience with development in this very area. He knows what the actual demand is for parking at developments like this. Parenthetically, there is a court case, this is the Valenti v. Obsequian court case, which supports this de minimis exception concept. And it says, where the board finds that the actual parking demand, as demonstrated by or testified to by Mr. Reed's earlier, is less than the strict application of your code, then the board may consider the lower supply of parking. But what's most interesting, whether you look at the C2 context or a de minimis exception, is the Paterson master plan also contemplated a lower standard for parking supply in redevelopment areas. And I'm going to refer to the master plan section 5, the master plan goal number 19, page 6-45, and it refers to your code in quotes as follows. Section 500-7.3 of the Land Development Ordinance should be amended. Parking requirements are intended to ensure that adequate provisions of vehicular storage are provided for any development and that streets or neighboring properties are not burdened with storage of vehicles for one property or use. And then it goes on to add the context that I think is most important as a takeaway for this application. While insufficient off-street parking can be problematic, excessive off-street parking has its own negative consequences as well. Providing off-street parking can be expensive and even cost prohibitive for a developer, and it also uses space that could potentially be put to another productive use. I'm going to stop there for a second. And you heard Matt Evans' testimony about the design of this building and its efficient use of design techniques and civic design techniques so that a sufficient number or adequate number of parking spaces is provided without taking away from the other attributes of this building. Typically, the cost associated to a developer is not something the board would consider, but the master plan clearly understood that, particularly in redevelopment areas where there are conditions of blight that are a disincentive to development and investment, it would be counterproductive to require developers to add parking that's not really necessary, again, based on Mr. Reed's empirical data, some of the demographics that we've looked at, which would then be, again, contrary to the goals and objectives of the redevelopment plan. The comment was made earlier about parking on the, in the surrounding area. I did visit the site, as did my staff. I would submit to the board, based on the exhibit I've shown you, that there are a number of cars parked on the street at a variety of different times of the day. What makes our project a bit different, however, is that we are providing parking on site, unlike some of the other multifamily dwellings in the area. So from a planning perspective, I would submit to this board that we advance the purposes of your master plan as it speaks to parking. We advance the purposes of the redevelopment plan, again, as it speaks to parking. We comport with the municipal land use law and case law as it pertains to parking. And again, we're undergirded by the testimony of a developer in the form of this applicant that does this year after year and really understands the market. I know you hear this from other applicants, but in JCM you have an applicant, when they say we wouldn't develop a property with insufficient parking because we would not be able to rent our units, you can trust that that is the case based on their track record, particularly in the 4th Ward redevelopment and 5th Ward redevelopment areas. So for all those reasons, from a planning perspective, it's my opinion that there are sufficient proofs in support of the requested parking relief, whether it's under the de minimis exception standard for the residential site improvement standard or the C2 context. And that would conclude my testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I just want to follow up with 1 or 2 quick questions. Obviously, the presence and availability of public transportation along Broadway and Straight Street would play a role in the ability of these units to be occupied and utilize that transit?
Yes, I thank you, Mr. Maricona. I mentioned the de minimis exception context for granting the relief being in proximity to mass transportation, but I neglected to offer the obvious, and that is that Paterson overall is well served by public transportation, and specifically well served by public transportation in this area in the location you just mentioned, which may also have been indicated on the aerial photograph that began my exhibit.
Right, that's the intersection on Broadway is only 3 blocks away.
Yes.
And also we have availability of the train station about 8 blocks away.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Okay, so, at this time, I am going to open it up to the public. If there's anyone else that has questions of Mr. Williams, they can call in. And that number would be 973-321-1579. The ID number is 711-680-001. We have callers on the line. I know one of them had a question, and I said to wait for the planner. So I'm going to see if Mr. Mejia, are you there?
Chairman Northrup, may I ask a question? Mr. Mejia, do not speak as of yet. I'd like to make this known, Chairman Northrup, that I did speak to Mr. Mejia and the other callers about, that they're willing to wait till the end, ask their question, and then give their comments. So if there's anything else, it will make it easier for this meeting to proceed a little faster and actually. Thank you.
Okay, all right, no worries. I'll open it up to the commissioners. If the commissioners don't have any questions, we'll let your callers in. So commissioners, do you have any questions of Mr. Williams? Here's somebody, commissioners,
No question.
no questions?
Mr. Savalos, is that you, sir?
Yes, no question.
You have no questions, okay. All right, so then I'm gonna open it up to the callers in. We're at the end of the meeting. I'm going to ask for Mr. Mejia first, because he had a question, and I believe Ms. Gonzalez also had comment. So let's start with the questions, okay?
Absolutely, and as you're asking questions of them, I will connect with IT staff in case there's other callers.
Okay, great.
Thank you for your proceed, Chairwoman, thank you for your
Okay,
patience.
so Mr. Mejia, are you there?
Yes, you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Speak up a little bit louder so the reporter can take your comments here and your questions. And also, once again, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Eliezer Mejia, and I live in 145 Hamilton Avenue.
Okay.
Actually, I want to know what type of formula the guys use to know how many parking spaces they need in order to the demand of parking space on Garland Street. And how is that going to affect not just in amount, but in 1 year, 2 years from now? And if that planning is taking more space than what they need. And also, I want to ask the planners of this new building edification, I want to know how they plan for the future of the building for the people who are going to live there. Is they going to have 1 or 2 cars? And because in most families in Paterson, they do not have just 1 car. And it's just 1 car.
Okay, so, you can, so first of all, who wants to answer Mr. Mejia's question?
Madam Chair, what I'd like to do is direct it to Mr. Williams. I think the first part of this question pertains to how a parking analysis and determination of parking suitability is made. Mr. Joyce might also touch upon it too, but I know Mr. Williams has already recited substantial testimony about how parking determinations are arrived at. But perhaps, Mr. Williams, you could do it from a perspective of the type of units we have, studio and 1-bedrooms, and as it relates to how our Paterson redevelopment ordinance takes into consideration what the needs of that unit. But I know you have touched upon it already, I understand.
Certainly, Mr. Mejia. I'm going to try and answer the question as best I can. I think Mr. Maricano gave me a framework to do so, but if I miss your intent, just let me know. So the ordinance is based on, well, there's a local ordinance and a state statute which provide parking requirements. What we're asking for is a deviation from the strict application of either the state requirement, Residential Site Improvement Standard, or RSIS, and or the redevelopment standards. There was a professor of mine in grad school, David Listigan, that helped write the state statute, the Residential Site Improvement Standard, and several years later, he opined that the one-size-fit-all was not actually as realistic and beneficial as he thought. When they wrote the standard, they were trying to give developers kind of a uniform approach to parking requirements so that as they went from town to town, they could rely upon a standard. But as my professor, former Professor David Listigan, later on wrote, again, one size does not fit all. There are so many factors that change the real parking demand for a site. And that's what I mentioned earlier on. Is it urban versus suburban? In urban, the presumption is you may need fewer parking cars per unit. Are the units small or large? 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom studio. And the planning theory suggests that these smaller units require no to 1 car per unit. And then proximity to mass transportation. And that typically lowers the reliance on vehicular ownership. And then there's the broad planning context, which suggests, particularly in urban areas, but anywhere in the United States, but definitely in urban areas, that the planning objective should be to reduce the reliance on automobile usage such that we have a cleaner environment, less congestion, etc. That being said, one of the other factors that informs my opinion about the real parking demand, I suspect that Mr. Maricona may call Mr. Reed as well, is that this developer does numerous multifamily developments in this area and has had years to test the real parking demand. So they have a sense of their market. They understand what the tenants in their buildings really require as a parking supply. And that's why I mentioned earlier that one of the court cases suggests, the Valenti v. Obsequian, if the real parking demand is less than that of the requirement by the code, then the variance would be appropriate. So I hope I answered the question, but if I missed it, please let me know.
Mr. Williams, you were correct in that I was going to use Mr. Reed to file a lot. I'm sorry, is the gentleman speaking?
Yes, I have a couple of questions, because in front of my house, there is another building, 1 Court Street, Hamilton Avenue. And I've heard from the people living in there, they charging for parking space and people start parking on the street. And my question is, why are they charging their clients, and the clients have to park in the middle of the street? And they come in front of my house and block my driveway. So now I have another question. Why you guys don't have security for the buildings? Last week I have an incident with the police that I cannot come out of my house because they were in front looking for drugs, narcotics, and they bring, I don't know how many, 10 people, 9 people, they bring it outside their house with guns and drugs. I have questions.
Mr. Mejias, I'm going to defer to the applicant, but I will say this, having worked for this particular applicant, or having had the benefit to work with them for several years, that not only are they developing in areas that are looking for investment to remove the blight, their management style is such that once they develop the building, they don't turn it over or sell it. They continue to manage all of their properties. And one of the ways they manage their properties is they have a security system, not only in terms of building management, lighting, cameras, etc., keypad access, but also security that does a circuit, a driving circuit, from one building to the next. So they're constantly monitoring all of their buildings. And I would argue, as a planner, that goes directly to the intent and purpose of a redevelopment plan, which is to improve the character of a given neighborhood or community. And certainly one of the indicators of better quality of life is security. So while there may be security issues prior to the development of a JCM application, I would argue that once the application is approved, by eliminating conditions of blight like abandoned properties, vacant properties, and putting in quality buildings like this one, that you will see a decrease in security issues. But I'll let Mr. Reed answer specifically about this site.
Okay, would Mr. Reed, the property manager, please come on so we can see you and you can talk to Mr. Mejia about some of his questions?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, okay, I see you now. Okay, so would you please address some of Mr. Mejia's questions? And Mr. Mejia, maybe you can mute your phone for now because there's a lot of background noise.
How I unmute the system?
Okay, hold on. Let me get IT to help you.
Okay.
Now, hold on. I don't know. Let me get IT to help you. Okay, Madam Secretary. All right, let's try to do it without. Let's just go. Go for it. Go ahead, Mr. Reed.
Mr. Reed, the part of the question that pertains to the applicant was how you plan, your parking needs going forward from Mr. Mejia in terms of the opening of the site, the building, and handling it as new tenants come and go. I think that was the thrust of his question for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he was saying something about, so first of all, this site right here, and I can assure the commissioner of the fact, I can put it in the resolution that no one will be charged additional for parking in a parking space. They'll be assigned to their parking on as, first come, first served, as we said originally in my testimony. So there will not be any charge for parking. Again, our buildings are well secured, well maintained, all of our properties. There's cameras assigned to the police department plus our security, 24 hours, 7 days a week security office located on Carroll Street. So all of our buildings are properly secured, properly maintained. It could be an incident that happened in any particular building with a particular tenant. It doesn't characterize that building as, that type of situation. Anything could happen anywhere, but there was no type of illegal activity going on in any of our buildings that we are aware of. And there was no illegal activities being conducted at our buildings. Not saying that there could have been an incident there last week where somebody happened to be at our building that the police may have been searching for.
Okay, Mr. Mejia, okay, I'm gonna have to wrap it up. If you have any comments, before I go over to, Ms. Gonzalez, okay, if you have any comments that you'd like to make, please make them now.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. In the last 2 years.
Yeah, but I gotta have, Mr. Mejia, okay, I'm gonna have to wrap it down. I have to wrap it up pretty soon. I'm allowing only 3 minutes for questions. So state your question, but I can't go much longer, so please just get the
Can
question
you
out.
open the floor to, this woman so she can ask questions, and if she doesn't, then we can proceed with the question.
No, I want to continue with Mr. Mejia is on the line. I'm gonna continue with him, please. Mr. Mejia, ask your question, but I can only allow a couple minutes for the question and answer, so please, state whatever you have to say and do it now, please. Mr. Mejia?
You hear me?
Yes, now I can, please. Did you hear what I said?
I want to know if you guys have investigated during the last 2 years about the police record in this area, and how are they planning to improve the area and not to do the area renting to people that have already...
Mr. Escovedo, I have to interject here. This is the last final statements. Make your statements, and we will close.
Okay, let me answer what I believe his question is. I think his question is 2 parts. One, we do a very good screening on our individual tenants. All of our tenants, we check their character, their credit, prior for addictions. We check the prior liens, what type of tenants they are. So we just don't put anybody in our properties. Like our parent said, we don't develop a building, occupy it, and try to flip it someone. We keep our properties in-house and maintain them. We manage and maintain them for the duration of our ownership. So we don't try to sell our buildings, we keep our buildings. And as far as, that's a good question you said, if you notice, in that focal area, there was a lot more crime, a lot more vacant buildings, a lot more arson and fire and drug dealing and drug use on a lot of properties within our neighborhood, including your neighborhood. And with our development and out there this blight, we push a lot of crimes out of the area, out of these locations right here. Now, another conversation we can all have with the police department as maybe beefing up the patrols in the city of Paterson, but that's an issue we can take to the mayor and the council and the police department about that. But as far as development, we are embracing a lot of the blight in our communities and making them a better community for all of us, our kids, and for our families to live in these areas. I mean, I'm from this area. I'm from the fourth ward myself.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up with Mr. Mejia. So, Madam Secretary, is Ms. Gonzalez on phone?
Yes, she is. She's on the line.
Do we have anybody else besides Ms. Gonzalez?
At the moment.
Okay, so let's put Ms. Gonzalez on because she wanted to make comments. Okay, so Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please state your name once again and spell it, and then your address for the record.
My name is Julia Gonzalez. I live at 147 Hamilton Avenue.
Okay, please state your comment. I'll give you 2 minutes to make your comment, please.
Okay, I'm going to use the lady across the street from me as an example. Mr. Reed painted a pretty picture, but I'm going to hit you with reality right now. Right now, I have seen death in this building. I've seen drug sales. This is an open candy store for illegal drugs. My cameras do not lie. I live this on a daily basis. They cut out their homes, they throw the garbage where does it land, and my property. I have to pay someone to clean up my area on a daily basis, just to avoid my area looking bad. Now, when they say they clean their people, or when they come into applications, I don't think they clean them hard enough. I don't think they do a criminal background check, because you have so many drug dealers living here. My cameras do not lie. I have a total of 12 cameras in my home. And I'm scared living here. When I come in my home, I don't even look back towards that building. Because if I do, there's always somebody looking right back at me. I park my car, and I get lucky that I come into my home because there's always a car parked there. Why? Because they charge for that parking. As much as they raise their right hand and they do it to the Bible that they don't charge their parking, if you find 3 people parking on their property, it's too much. Why? Because people cannot afford to pay for their parking. That's why they're blocking our driveways, they park in front of our homes. There's days that I gotta stay stuck in my home, and I gotta find a way to get to work because somebody's blocking my driveway because they parked it and they couldn't park in parking. And their private parking there. Now, I questioned it one time, what is going on with this building with a strip, they have a floor with a strip floor, with strippers on there. Oh, we don't know who goes in our building, we can't stop them from having visitors, but you can have a stripper floor, are you kidding me? No one then said, oh, well, we're going to take care of the situation. No one said that. Now, if you look at my cameras on a daily basis, you will see exactly what I'm seeing. And this is an open candy store for drugs. They come out, it's like nothing. They come out, they do their duty, go right back in the building, and you can't tell me as a homeowner or as a tenant, you cannot control who lives in your building. And that's what I'm saying about, they didn't even mention a super, they're parking. They're charging for the parking spot, they're going to get 8 parking spots for 15 units. I mean, where does that come from? Another thing, the front yard setback, it costs for a minimum of 3 feet, they're proposing 0. I mean, I don't know where the city of Paterson being blindsided by all of this. They're putting all these buildings like these tiny homes. Where are we going with all these buildings? And what's happening with the illegal activities that are going on inside of them? No one is mentioning none of that. Everybody's sweeping it under the rug. I will pay any one of the board planning members right now in this meeting to come and stay with me for a month. And you will see exactly what I'm talking about. That everything I see in my cameras and everything that goes on from my home is not a lie. That's all I have to say right now. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
This is Wilma. Excuse me, Chair. I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner Brooks.
Mr. Reed, is the young lady correct in saying that they have to pay for their parking? I thought you always said that that's included in the rent. What? Is that different now? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I have been, I'm sorry. Madam Commissioner, I assure you that we do not charge the tenants for the rent. And again, if this application approved, I would even, agree to add a stipulation in the resolution saying that the parking will be available for no fee to the tenants.
I'd like that put in. Thank you.
No problem, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to follow up in terms of the comments that were made. We appreciate the concerns of the residents that have made a commitment to live in the area. It's our position based upon our testimony tonight by the professional and the applicant over the course of many months and years now, that these are the buildings that are turning around these neighborhoods and helping to eliminate and or at least reduce the problems that have existed in this area. We understand the frustration of the residents, but those problems emanate from outside of our specific project here tonight. This project and this development needs to be judged on its merits standing on its own, what it can do for the neighborhood in general as well. Thank you.
Well, I certainly agree with that. I took a look at that lot and it was empty and it just was inviting to me to bring people in, to do illegal things. So, I'm gonna move on. Mr. Maricondo, would you like to summarize?
Very briefly.
Oh, that's right, let me just ask one last question. Commissioners, do any other commissioners have any questions before I open this up to, Commissioner Cooley, please.
Okay, thank you. I think this parking lot is, clearly you can see is an eyesore to the fourth ward. It's an empty lot, people throwing garbage in there, which is developed, looking revenue to the city of Paterson. And we are, as you know, we are a cash-strapped city. We have a big deficit on our budget, close to $59 million. It will bring zero revenue to the budget that is a plus for the citizens of Paterson. Thank you. That's what I want to say.
Okay, thank you. I have one last question.
I have a question also.
Excuse me, I have a question, Mr. Reed. Okay, is this property gonna be abated? Is this a tax abatement property? Mr. Reed?
I can't read this up myself, but now that's, above my head, but I believe it might be as of right for just a short period of time. It's only for a partial, it's only for a short period of time, as of right to encourage development in the distressed cities in the state of New Jersey.
All right, what's a short period of time?
In like 5 years.
Okay. All right.
Madam Chair, Mr. Reed is correct, and I know Mr. Aquavino will probably be able to confirm it. The new construction abatement is a very limited 5-year tax abatement to encourage development, especially in the redevelopment zone. But this property will realize substantial tax revenue over the long term for the city.
Okay, so in other words, you're saying the tax abatement is to encourage development?
Is it regulated by the state?
Yeah, and it's not the city of Paterson, it's for the city of New Jersey.
It's the state.
Yes. State, okay, all right.
The state is the program, but it's administered, by the city locally. But it's something that is very important to encourage development. And again, it will be taxed, but there'll be a higher tax rate after a 5-year period. I might point out to the commissioners that every project that comes before you with new construction, even the smaller projects, and anybody feel free to correct me, is eligible for that abatement, I would believe.
Yeah, okay.
And we do have construction with our own money. We don't use city funds or government funds or anything like that. We finance with our own capital.
Right. These are privately financed developments, exactly, Mr.
Right, okay, so, all right, so, is there any other, Commissioner Brooks, you had a question?
Well, it was about the tax abatement, but most of your properties now get a tax abatement, and it's not through the state. It's through the city of Paterson. I know the state says with redevelopment that in order to encourage development, that you can give an abatement to encourage buildings in a city like Paterson or in an urban area. But you've gotten a lot of abatements on these properties that you built in Paterson, which is not really helping the tax base. At least it's not helping it at this rate. If you're talking, and the ones I looked at, it was more than 5 years. It was more like 15 years. So
No.
I just wanted to correct that.
No, at that point in time, they paid full tax rate. A lot of our bills now are 3 and 4 years old, so they really come due now that we start paying a higher percentage of taxes, and yes, the run goes up substantially. And it's to encourage, to be honest with you, every site we look up, that means most of our properties were properties that were paying 0 taxes and stressing the city services, and they were paying the bad, they weren't paying any taxes, and they were stressing the city services. So we take a bite with this idea to create a tax base. And then the tax, it don't last forever, they come and do now. But this was getting Paterson back up on your feet though.
That's a long-term view. Mr. Aquavino, if I could ask you, and we don't mind discussing it, it's a matter of public records, but would it be fair to say that the applicability of a tax abatement or suitability of a tax abatement, is it really not directly in the purview of a planning board review?
Mr. Marcon, I think I hear you. Again, you're breaking up, but I think I know your question. Basically, I think the confusion over the tax abatement is this. First of all, it's not automatic. Okay, there's applications that have to be filed, there's a process that needs to be followed. Mr. Reed is correct that one of the abatements that are available is a 5-year abatement. There used to be ones that were much longer that, quite frankly, I haven't seen lately. But I think what the board needs to understand that, for example, if that abatement is for 5 years, the purpose is twofold. One, to encourage development for the city, and two, to get the building established and on its feet with an adequate rent roll for a period of time. After that 5 years, the assessment is then based on the true value of the property. So, for example, if the property right now would be worth $1 million, but fully rented 5 years from now, it's worth $2 million, the assessment is now based on $2 million in 5 years. So, it essentially goes from zero or close to zero to a $2 million assessment, given a period of time that it takes for the building to get up and running, constructed, built, up and running, occupied with an active rent roll. So it does serve a couple of purposes, and I did also hear, I don't know who it was, they are correct that it is administered through the state of New Jersey, but actually directed through the individual cities that it applies to. So it is a program that encourages development, and cities, not only Paterson, almost all of the cities in the state encourage it. And it's on a case-by-case basis, and there's an application process that goes hand in hand with it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that being said, I'm gonna ask that Mr. Mariconda, can you please summarize for us this evening?
Really appreciate your time tonight. I know the board has given this application a very detailed review. Therefore, I'll be very concise in my comments. I think the testimony before you this evening, our expert testimony, was very much on point. The applicant's testimony was very clear in terms of the history and intentions of the applicant with this site. This is almost a mirror image of other approved projects that this board has analyzed, reviewed, and approved, and have been successful already, which is very, very important. This is not a pie-in-the-sky type of concept. This is real-world continuation of redevelopment in the same zone. I think that's really important for the board to consider. The need for new housing is there. It's established by state, city, and judicial determinations in this state. And again, the ability to provide new housing, safe and secure new housing, with parking on site is a win-win situation for the city of Paterson and its residents. We respectfully ask the board for a motion for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Eugene.
Yes.
Time to make a comment.
Well, we already heard the comments, but if you make it quickly, we'll be happy to hear it.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I just want to express my sincere appreciation to JCM for investing in Paterson, especially in redevelopment area. But here's the unsweet truth that many homeowners are charging extra money for the parking spaces. They do that. This is a very unsweet truth. And also the background check that they called out, the residents who called. I really appreciate your comments, questions, and I want to request Mr. Reed to make sure that the screening process, the background check, is properly done. And also, this question I think I should address to the board attorney, that instead of just covering this stuff, like whether the background check should be, screening process should take place, or the homeowners cannot charge extra for the parking spaces. Can it be in the record in written form? In any case, I'm not just talking about the JSON today's application, I'm talking about also in the future applications.
Commissioner, in all honesty, you really cannot condition an approval on that sort of a requirement. You've made your thoughts known. They're on the record. I'm sure the applicant will take them into consideration in this application as well as those in the future. But in terms of, essentially, you're getting into almost managing the property for the applicant. And at that point, it becomes a little bit of an overstep. And in my professional opinion, there's no way that anything like that could be enforced if it was ever challenged. So I would not recommend trying to make that a condition, but you made it very clear, you made it part of the record, and I think that's adequate enough.
Mr. Aguilera, can you make a condition that there are no charges for parking spaces?
Again, Madam Chair, you're getting into the management of the building. The question is always, can you? Sure you can. Will it be enforced if the applicant ever decided to challenge it? In my opinion, probably not.
All right, but if we go on the record and they're caught, we can do something.
Can you clarify that for me, Mr. Aquaviva, once again, because you're saying no, but then again.
What I'm saying is, I would advise against it. Nothing prohibits anyone from making that condition and possibly an approval based on that condition. My professional opinion is that if the applicant did not accept that condition and initiated litigation to reverse that condition, in my opinion, they would be successful.
Mr. Acavita, through the chair, just one quick question. Why do you think that that's not a condition? Paterson have had large buildings, for example, the ones that were on Broadway before they were sold to a new owner at 500 Broadway. When they built those buildings were the charges for, they were not charged for parking. Parking was a part of the condition of the building. So I don't know why you're saying that that's not a good condition. It used to be. It just changed, maybe you talking in the last 10 years or so. But I know that at 30 years, that was a condition, that was a part of.
I'm gonna interject here a moment, please, Mr. Aquaviva. Please turn to me.
I would like to answer the commissioner's question.
Please.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, Commissioner.
No, I know what you're saying, but I'm just telling you that I don't think that that's really accurate unless something changed in the last 10, 15 years. I know that the high-rise buildings now, they charge the people extra, but the original owners that built them buildings, those parking was part of the building, and those apartments, that's how they allowed them to build them without a lot of variances, because they did not charge them for that parking. Parking was a requirement, and it's not a luxury. So I don't see what I can say. I'm done.
Commissioner Brooks?
Done.
Commissioner Brooks, okay, I just want to say, and I also want to say to Mr. Aquaviva, that I believe earlier when we were all talking and one of the call-ins, accused Mr. Reed of charging, he agreed that it could be a condition. He says, because you could put it in there as a condition, we're not going to charge. I understand what you're saying, but how do we enforce it? But it doesn't hurt, I don't think, to add it in there and say it.
I still agree to put that condition in. We can put it in, I agree to put that condition in. And I still
Then, Madam Chair, yes, it will be a condition, but it's also a stipulation on the record, so therefore, the applicant is agreeing to it. So that's a totally different ballgame here. It's not something that essentially is being forced upon the applicant. He's agreeing to it.
I agree to it. I assure you we will not charge for parking in this space here. I assure you.
Okay, so Commissioner Radin, does that answer your question?
Yes, Madam Chair, and Mr. Koviva, if it is not against the rule and against the rule, I don't want to break the rule, but if it is not against the rule, I just want to add to the condition, and I'm not just talking about today's application, the future applications too, to make sure that we at least, trying to help the tenants. And again, I said that this is very unsafe truth, and this happened, and that I have witnessed certain things, so So very short, and whoever called, and this is nothing fictional.
Let me try to clarify this point as best I can for you, Commissioner, and for Commissioner Brooks. Over the past 10 to 15 years, I'm sorry, less than, over the past 10 years, there have been cases that have come down interpreting the MLUL, okay, where, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, I'll try to be as general as I can, where commissioners and board members cannot get into the management of the applicant's buildings, okay? One of those issues is, when you're considering a parking variance, you're either going to consider the parking variance and allow it, or you're not going to allow it. To put a condition on, and in this case, that is off the record at this point because the applicant has agreed to it, okay? But the point I'm trying to make is that if a board member were to make a motion for approval conditioned on something like that, it may very well be accepted by the applicant and no one will ever hear of it again. What I'm saying is, based upon current, or I should say recent case law, if the applicant chose to challenge that in court, in my opinion, it would be reversed. Now, 2 points that you make. Number one, that situation does not apply tonight anymore because the applicant just put on the record that he's agreeing to do it. That's different. He's agreeing to it. If he doesn't do it, code official will get called in. It's a whole different ballgame. Okay, because he would be in violation of the resolution, okay? But second, in regards to your point, you can't, at least in this form, at least in this forum, make a blanket rule, so to speak, that in future applications, an applicant cannot charge for parking. That is something that, and I'm sure Councilman Khalid would agree with me, that would be something that would have to be taken up and essentially be an ordinance amendment brought before the city council, okay? There is no such ordinance, there is no such subsection on the record right now. For the purposes of this board, it's a case-by-case basis. You can't basically say, okay, from this point on, we are gonna make a rule that no applicant can charge for parking. It would never be enforceable. Absolutely no way. But your point is well taken, and on a case-by-case basis, as the board considers it, the board will hear it.
Thank you very much. Okay, so all of that being said, that answers your question, Commissioner Odine?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you, Mr. Acoviva, thank you, Mr. Reed.
Okay, all right, so would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application?
Chairwoman, Mr. Fisher?
Yes, Commissioner Fisher, yes?
Yeah, I had a question.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I thought he closed out the questions. Make it quick, please.
We didn't close out because they kept talking about conditions, so that's why.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We were talking about these, taxes and the tax abatements and all this 5, 15 years, whatever. That's not really my concern. My concern is on these properties, cause I came in late, are the taxes paid to date. That's all I worry about, is they're paid to date on the property. And that's the key. So I didn't hear if this property was paid up to date. That's all. That's all my question.
Mr. Deutsch did indicate on the record taxes are financed, or?
Commissioner, was written to the record by Mr. Deutsch, but it be one of the first couple paragraphs of his report.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Deutsch, I didn't hear you say that.
That was very early on in the meeting, Mr.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
You're muted. Madam Chair, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application?
I'll up to you for the motion.
Yes, okay, Commissioner Dean, go ahead. Go ahead.
On the application of JCM Investor, 1012 LLC, 449 East 18th Street, Paterson, New Jersey, 07524, at property address 8-10 Garden Avenue, block 3606, lot 3. I move that the board attorney prepare a resolution granting site plan approval, block variances subject to city engineer approval. The city county ATP soil conservation district approval. And with the, should I mention the condition?
Yes, yes.
With the condition
Say it,
that,
put it on record.
yeah, with the condition that the owner is not going to charge extra for the parking spaces.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
Commissioner? Commissioner Fisher? Second? Okay, roll call please.
Commissioner Fisher, Vice Chairman Fisher, your vote is?
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know I go first, but yes, my vote is
Do it
yes.
now, because you already said yes, so
Yes, no problem.
thank you. Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Savalos,
Yes.
Cleves,
Yes.
Mr. Santana,
Yeah.
Eugene,
Then absolute yes.
Councilman Cleave,
Councilman Cody?
Yes.
and Lunch, and Chair Winworth.
Yes.
The approval is 8 in the affirmative. Thank you very much. This application.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, good night.
Okay, everybody sit tight, commissioners. Okay, so, do we have any resolutions this evening?
No, we do not today. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Deutsch, what's our next meeting or when is it?
Wednesday, February 17th.
Okie dokie. All right then. So everyone, be safe, stay well, okay? And I need a motion to close.
Motion.
So moved by Commissioner Odine. All in favor? Yes. Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.